Esther did it. Incredible, right? I mean, this quiet Jewish girl who became queen out of nowhere ends up rescuing her entire people group from certain death. It's a crazy story. Can you imagine, though, if Esther and Mordecai had just stopped with saving themselves? I mean, think about it. Esther exposes Haman's plot to hang Mordecai, the very person who saved the king's life back in the day. And the king takes care of Haman and elevates Mordecai to a position of great influence and gives honor to Queen Esther. It's safe to say that their lives were probably safe, no matter how everything else was going to shake out. Victory was achieved, at least for themselves. But the problem is the edict of death for the Jewish nation was still in effect and was ready to be carried out. And so Esther again goes to the king and asks him to save the rest of the Jewish nation. There's a little bit of a hiccup, though. See, the edict of death had already been written, and the wheels were already in motion to see it carried out. So what was the king supposed to do? Well, the king wrote another edict that gave the Jews the right and the ability to defend themselves and kill those who would attack them without fear of punishment or reprisal from the king. Here's the deal for you and me. The edict of death is not going to be taken back until Jesus returns and sets everything right. Death is inevitable for all of us unless Jesus returns. So what are we supposed to do? Well, we must trust in the new edict of the King. King Jesus came to earth, he left his throne and came to earth to live just like us and to die a painful and gruesome death for us. He paid the death penalty for us, but that's not the end of the story. 3 days later, he rose from the dead and defeated death. He defeated the death edict once and for all. And now when death comes knocking, followers of Christ have no need to fear, no need to run, because while we will experience dying, we will not experience death. See, the wheels of dying have already been set in motion and cannot be stopped until Jesus returns, but the edict of death has been canceled once and for all by the death of Jesus. Now think back to Esther and Mordecai in our story. Imagine if they hadn't went to the king and asked for him to help save the rest of their people. Imagine if they just said, hey, I got out of this deal and I'm not pushing my luck and asking for the king to help others. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? I mean, who in their right mind would experience a dramatic rescue from the jaws of death like Esther and Mordecai and then not try to save others who were heading down the same fate you were just rescued from? Especially when you know the very person who can save them from certain death. It's a crazy idea, right? That nobody would do that. Nobody would do that, right? I think you've probably figured out where I'm heading here, but I'll say it anyway. Are we really any different when we don't share Jesus with the people God has placed around us in our lives? If you're watching this and you have never surrendered your life to Jesus, if you've never placed your trust in Jesus, if you've never admitted that you need someone to rescue you from certain death, would you reach out to someone in your group tonight? Maybe your group leader or another leader in your church or your ministry. And if you're watching this, though, and you are a follower of Jesus, if you've asked Jesus to rescue you from certain death, can I ask you, who have you told? Who have you shared your Jesus story with? Who are the people that God's placed in your life who are primed and ready to hear from you about how Jesus changed your life? If you don't have any of those kind of people, it's time you start asking God daily to bring them into your life. Pray for people, engage in people's lives, listen to their stories, and pray for God to provide an opportunity for you to share with them how you have been rescued. Because it's just plain crazy for us not to join in and rescue those who are headed the same fate we were before Jesus rescued us. It's time to share our story so other people's stories can be rewritten just like ours.